Today we're talking about strength training, flexibility training, and periodization. A lot of people don't understand how and when to move on to a next phase with training, if they're ready for it, why they should be moving on, why they shouldn't be moving on. Well, today we're going to be going deep and talking about how we do it in the UMS.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
We're back.
Hey everyone, in case we haven't met, my name is Rad Burmeister. I'm joined today by my brother Yanni Burmeister.
What's up?
And we are the co-founders of Unity Gym and co-creators of the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we turn driven people into superhumans. And the way that we get such amazing results with our members is that we have a program that has a balance between strength and flexibility. It's very unique. If you want to know how we do it, grab one of the blueprints, the free downloads, the strength blueprint, flexibility blueprint, or nutrition blueprint. And today we're talking program periodization, and we're doing it from our very new podcast studio. How does the sound? We have some much better microphones, so I really hope it sounds a lot better.
Well, that's going to be a little bit of trial and error, because there's always teething problems with new tech. But Richie's been working his butt off to get this to come together, to get it all set up. And we got a new table. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, we're sitting at a very nice new table that I worked my butt off on for the last week or two, and it is, and we got the new Shure SM7B mics set up. We've got, it's pretty epic. We got a few more updates to go with the camera setup, so that we're going to be producing a nicer live stream to our UMS Movement Mastermind private Facebook group. If you haven't already, get over there and subscribe. But we want to. You don't actually have to subscribe to the Movement Mastermind. You just have to apply to the group. You just have to agree to abide by the code of conduct. There's a lot of good reasons to get on over there. If you're a listener on the podcast, we give exclusive offers, and we also interact. You can join. Like, we've got a bunch of live people watching now. Hello, Rebecca. Hello, Lockie. Hello, Mike. Hello, Vinny.
Hey, Lockie.
Yeah,
hey,
and you get to become part of the recording of these podcasts. How cool is that? We got Namala joining in. Thanks everyone for giving us some props for our new setup. Yeah, it's still a little bit to go. You're going to see some pretty cool stuff in the background there on the wall. We're going to have our brands recognized up there, what Rad, Richard, and myself have worked so hard to build. And we're going to have some great guests joining
Vinny's
us
giving us
around
grief
the table.
that we haven't got coasters for our cups on the new table.
I know. Oh, man, trust me, I was the one that prepped this table and treated it and made it look amazing. And I said to Rad, we're going to be using coasters on the table. Absolutely. So we had a good question come in over the weekend from one of our UMS online coaching tribe members, Lars.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, why don't you read it, Rad?
Lars has said, "Hi guys, here's a question for you about periodization. Have read through the UMS Strength Essentials guide. Great guide, by the way. There is some info about it there, but I'd like some more explanation. I understand all the cycles, but if you can please explain the principle of accumulation, intensification, speed strength, and deloading, perhaps using the bench press as an example with numbers of weight, sets, reps, tempo for the different types of microcycles. Testing week is almost as deload week, I suppose. This is what I have read in the program and the spreadsheet. I'd like to understand my goals. I hope you can understand my not native language. Thanks." Great questions, Lars, because it's, a lot of people, they hear this stuff and they just think, that's not for me. I don't really want to understand it. And I can guarantee you that for those of you that make an effort to understand how periodization works and what the different cycles mean, you are going to get far greater results than for those of you that just sort of say, bugger it, I don't need to know that stuff. So the first thing to understand is we probably just need to pre-frame a little bit for those of you that haven't read the Strength Essentials guide, which is really the theoretical component to the strength training that we do in the UMS program. So it's exclusive for
Can I just dive in here and interrupt? I know Rad hates me interrupting you. I just want to say I'm so glad to hear that someone is reading the theory guide to our online program.
A lot of people have read it. I've
really?
spoken to a lot of people that have read it. Yeah.
Yeah, when I wrote that and put that content together, I felt like it would just make the program so much better. And our goal with UMS, with the online coaching tribe and the gym, is to teach people how to fish. It's not just to walk you through doing a workout every day. We want to empower you guys. We want you to become inspiration for your circle of influence, for your community, for your tribe, for your family, for your children, whoever, And part of that is teaching you about the most important principles of scientific strength and conditioning. And that's really what that guide is. That guide is the theory, and I'm glad to hear people are reading it.
So, as I said before, to pre-frame it, for those of you that haven't read it, it is exclusive for Unity Gym members and UMS online coaching members, because it is the backbone to the theory of our programming, and there's decades of sports science research that's gone into it. So in a nutshell, periodization is when you manipulate any or all of several variables in your workouts. So you can manipulate the amount of weights that you do or the intensity of an exercise, which directly affects the amount of reps that you can do. You can change the amount of sets that you do. You can change the tempo, meaning the amount of time it takes for you to do the eccentric and concentric phase. You can change the exercise selection. You can change overload techniques, and you can also change the rest between sets. And when you change any of those or all of those, that's called periodization, any combination of them. And there is infinite different ways to periodize. Maybe there's not infinite, but there's so many different ways to use periodization. So that's the first thing to understand. That's what periodization means. Now, in the UMS program, we do 6-week periodization cycles. That's called a mesocycle. And a mesocycle is made up of microcycles. And in our case, microcycles go for 1 week. So one mesocycle has 6 microcycles. The 6th one is the deload microcycle, which is what we're in right now. Whilst we're doing these home workouts, we're doing 4-week cycles. But that's only because we don't have weights to manipulate, and we're doing cardio, and it's quite high intensity. So the last microcycle of every mesocycle is the deload week / testing week. So you're right there. You've said, Lars, testing week is almost as deload week. We used to do them separately, but what we found was that out of a 6-week cycle, if 1 week was deload week and then 1 week was testing week, there was too much of a 6-week cycle that people weren't going for it, and people weren't getting the best results. So that's why we do that in the same week. So the next thing to talk about is, so you're asking, can you please explain the principles of accumulation and intensification? We'll talk about that first, because those are the main.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So he said the principle of accumulation and intensification. The better way to describe that would be, can you please explain what accumulation training is and what intensification is? It's not the principle of accumulation.
And maybe the principle of undulating periodization, which is the concept of undulating between those two cycles. For those on the podcast, I'm waving my hand in an undulating fashion.
Yep. There's different, and you can undulate between more than just accumulation and intensification, but they're the main, like speed, strength would be another thing that you could undulate between.
Yep.
But we don't do that because we're not training athletes at Unity Gym.
Well, we do. We have a speed strip, but we only do it a couple of times a year.
That's
once every macro cycle.
That's exactly right. And a macro cycle is a group of mesocycles. So a macro cycle makes up 4 mesocycles, which in our case is 24 weeks, 6, 12, 18, 24 weeks. Yep. So, accumulation and intensification. Accumulation means accumulating volume in the body, and intensification means intensifying the exercises that you do. So what accumulation means is you basically, it can also be referred to as hypertrophy training. Some people call it hypertrophy training, where the goal is to get more volume on a particular muscle group in a workout and in a microcycle and in a mesocycle. So by getting more volume, you're accumulating fatigue, which means you're going to build muscle.
You're accumulating, time under tension. You're accumulating metabolic damage to the muscle tissue. You know, I think the biggest difference between a speed strength or maximal strength phase, which is the intensification phases, and an accumulation phase, is that your goal is actually to build muscle tissue, to hypertrophy muscle tissue, which requires sort of three things. It requires load. The weight of the load, or the intensity of the load, is one of the variables. The other variable is that it requires a lot of time under tension, slowing down the eccentric to cause as much metabolic damage and time under tension. And the third is that you are actually trying to damage the tissue. You're trying to cause as much metabolic damage to the tissue as humanly possible to elicit that response in the body where it says, okay, I need to thicken these muscle fibers. I need to lay mass down, muscle cell myogenesis, that's pretty much it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll explain intensification quickly first, and then we'll, talk about what it means in layman's terms. So intensification is where the goal is to increase the intensity of the exercises that you're doing. And there's two main ways to do that. When you add weight, so you lift more weight, you're increasing the intensity. And when it comes to weightlifting, intensification training for somebody with the training age of Yanni, Richard, and me is 5 reps or less. But for an absolute beginner, it can actually be as many as 8 reps. 8 reps can be considered intensification training for a beginner. And when it comes to calisthenics exercises, it's when you choose a progression that is hard enough that you could only do between 3 and 5 repetitions of it. So that's what intensification training is. And the idea of that is...
There's a bit of a disclaimer there. There's a caveat or disclaimer. The reason, because the sports scientists among us will be saying, well, once you go above 7 reps, it's a different energy system. It's a different muscle fiber being used, which is no longer intensification. The reason why we say up to 8 reps is intensification for a beginner is because the neural pathways are forming, and there's different things happening for a beginner than there is for a seasoned athlete or someone who's well conditioned.
Yep.
That as the training age increases, the stimulus changes, that you become more dominant in certain muscle fibers, and the stimulus needs to change and alter to suit that, to accommodate that. So essentially, as your training age increases, every year that you've been training under these principles, your intensification rep range gets lower and lower and lower. And to a really experienced, like a lot of friends of mine who are professional powerlifters, their intensification is 1 to 3 reps. Anything above 3 reps is kind of like volume training to these guys,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So if we go back to explaining, so intensification, let's get rid of beginners, absolute beginners from this equation, and we'll talk about anybody that's been training for 6 months or more, which would mean that intensification training would be that 5 rep range or less.
Yep.
So the idea
1
is...
to 5 reps.
1 to 5 reps, yeah. So the idea is that when you do intensification training, you are trying to increase strength by lifting more weight, or by doing let's talk about the bench press, because Lars was asking about the bench press. So let's keep it specific to that. So we're doing the bench press. You're doing intensification training, which means you're doing 5 reps or less, which means we're lifting a lot of weight. Like, it's 5 reps isn't an arbitrary number. If you say to yourself, I'm going to do 5 sets of 5 reps, you choose a weight where you would not be able to do more than 6 reps. Like, that would be it, and you would do your 5 or 6 reps there. It's not that you just grab a weight and you stop when it gets to 5. So the amount of reps that you tell yourself you're doing is going to dictate the weight. To do that, the idea is to increase your strength, to increase how much weight you can lift, which there's a lot of things that go on in the body that cause a strength increase. Whereas accumulation training, if you're doing 8 reps or more, so you're doing that accumulation training, the idea is to accumulate volume. And by accumulating volume, you will still get stronger, but it's less about that. It's about causing damage to the muscle fibers, to the tissues, to cause them to thicken and to hypertrophy.
Yep.
So that's the main difference between accumulation and intensification. And our mesocycles change all the time, Lars. Some mesocycles we have 3 weeks of accumulation training and 1 week of intensification. Others we have no accumulation training, 3 weeks of intensification training, and a week of speed power, or they change all the time. And the reason why we change these is because you have to constantly be changing the stimulus of what you're doing, otherwise you'll plateau.
Yep.
Yeah? And if you change too much and you just do random things, you'll injure yourself because you don't give the body time to adjust. Anything you want to add to that, Yanni, before we move on to the next part of his question?
No, that's pretty much it.
So then to move into speed strength. So speed strength is another form of training where the idea is to create explosive power, explosive strength. So speed strength is what an Olympic weightlifter uses. It's what, in all honesty, I'm trying to think of a sport right now, like an athletic sport, not snooker or pool or something like that, but tennis, cricket, basketball, soccer, NFL, rowing, anything, any of those sports uses speed strength because there is a point in the game where they have to throw the ball or hit the ball or pull the oar through the water as fast as humanly possible. So speed strength will benefit you. But the idea is with speed strength training is so you do all this accumulation training, you build muscle. You do all this strength training, you build strength. But now, how do you transfer that into your ability to throw a basketball very, very fast in a pass to a player, or to serve with a tennis racket and get what's a fast tennis serve? 150 miles per hour?
Well, yeah, 220 Ks.
220 Ks, whatever it is. So how do you transfer that strength that you've been working on your bench press to get up to 120 kilos for 5 reps? How do you transfer that into the serve with tennis? It's with speed strength training.
Yeah, now and it's interesting because there is a lot of different methods and a lot of different opinions from the strength and conditioning sort of industry and body about how to do this. And a lot of people will say, so long as you are doing a lot of skill-specific training, kicking soccer balls, hitting baseballs, throwing footballs, and hitting swinging tennis rackets, then you've got that carryover occurring already, and depending on the amount, the sport, the vast majority of training will be skill specific, but there are certain sports and certain coaches who are very, very fond of what's called contrast training, or I can't remember. I get this wrong. There is the contrast method, and there's another name for it. Basically, what I'm talking about is the combination of movements, the coupling of sport-specific movement with the strength training element. And there is a specific name for it. It eludes me at the moment on a live stream. That's the downside of a live stream. We could probably Google it. Once Richie's fully up and running up there, I'll get him to run a search for something like that. Look, and this is something that we've experimented with a little bit, especially for me, because my background in sport, the thing that I got into the most was boxing, and martial arts is one of those sports that seem to benefit quite well from this. I've read a lot of literature. I used to subscribe to a lot of different journals, scientific sports exercise science journals, and the most current data would sort of suggest that doing your maximum load bench press followed or coupled with in a superset sort of environment with heavy explosive punches on the punching bag creates a really, really interesting adaptation in the body, where you're not just developing the power and the strength from the bench press. Now your body is immediately strengthening the neural pathways to apply that strength in the movement that's most benefited from it. And so we do carryovers. And here's the thing, here's something that should be mentioned. All of the training that we do at Unity Gym is speed strength training. We never prescribe slow concentric repetitions. And the reason for that is because it's just not very practical to do so.
Yeah, it takes too long.
The way you train, well, not just that, the way you train is the way you behave, the way you perform. And the only application I've ever found useful for slowing concentric reps to prescribed slowdown of concentric repetition, which does alter the way the nervous system adapts, is for bodybuilding. And we are as far from bodybuilding as humanly possible here at Unity Gym. We train for function. We want our body to be able to do certain things, not to look a certain way. And I'm not having a dig at bodybuilding in any way, shape or form, but it's a specific way of training.
Yeah.
And it's not always a very practical way of training. People blur those lines a little bit, you know. When your goal is to build symmetry in your body and to look a certain way so you can stand on stage and present a certain physique, you don't always train in a practical manner for movement, for explosive strength, for speed strength, and even for maximal strength, you know. And so, yeah, that's one of the downsides to sort of bodybuilding, you know. You can become a little bit dysfunctional. That's not all bodybuilders. Not all bodybuilders train like that, but a lot of them do, you know.
But the way we do speed strength in the UMS is there's one of many methods that we've chosen to use, and because we only do it twice a year for 1 week, and until we can think of a better reason to do it for more than that, that's all we do it for. The way we do it is we choose very sub-maximal weight, so that the idea is when you do speed strength training is that the first rep and the last rep should be just as fast in the concentric phase. You should be able to, so with the bench press, when you come down to your chest, you should explode up so fast that the bar almost bounces out of your hands. And the last rep shouldn't slow down. So if the first rep goes like that, the last rep shouldn't go like that, which it can when you're doing strength training, and it actually should, because you should be going right to that point of failure, but you're still able to get up. So when you're doing intensification training and you're doing 5 reps per set, the last rep will look very slow. It will almost not even get up. Like you're pushing as hard as you possibly can, but with speed strength, that's quite different.
Yeah, that's right.
And then if we talk about, so just to finish off your question here, Lars, so the bench press, for an example, with numbers of weight, sets, reps, tempo. So for accumulation training, for somebody that's brand new to the gym that hasn't been training before, the reps that you'd be doing per set for accumulation would be 12 to 15 reps. For intensification training, would be more like 8 to 10 reps. Okay, and for speed strength, you just would not do speed strength for a beginner. Absolutely not.
Yeah. For
intensification training. For somebody that's more advanced, just a step above a beginner, so 6 months to 12 months of training. Accumulation training would be about a 10 to 12 rep range, and intensification training would be more like a 6 to 8 rep range. Yep,
6 to 8, and then advanced,
and then anything above 12 months of training, of consistent training. Accumulation training is going to be more like 8 reps,
to 10, yep.
8 to 10, and intensification training will be anything less than 5. And once you get to what's actually in gymnastics, it's actually referred to being called a trained beginner, which is a couple of years of training, but you still cannot do the intermediate to advanced gymnastics progressions. They recommend that you always work between that 5 to 8 rep range when you're doing calisthenics stuff. And the reason why, there's a very good reason why. When you go above the 8 rep range, you're doing a progression that's just too easy for you, and you should be working on something harder. But if you go below
it's the same in strength training.
Yeah,
I very rarely get to above 7 reps now.
Yeah, I never go above 8 reps, and I very rarely go below 5 reps. I will do 3 reps sometimes, but I more often do 5 reps, and there's a good reason why. I'll tell you why. Because when you do strength training, when you do accumulation training, you need to do between 40 and 70 repetitions on the one muscle group to get minimum. Yep. So you can do a lot more than that, but you need to do a minimum of between 40 to 70 repetitions to get the volume that you need in order to build muscle. Why is there a range there? Because for a more senior person, you could get away with 40 repetitions. Sorry, you'd probably need more repetitions if you've been training for longer, but as a beginner, you could get a good result from less repetitions. But for strength training, for intensification, you need to do a minimum of 25 repetitions on one muscle group to get stronger. So if you're doing 5 sets of 5 reps, you'll get those 25. But if you're doing 3 reps per set, you're going to need to do 8 or 9 sets to get the minimum amount of volume to get stronger. So there's a lot of things that come into this, Lars.
Yep.
And I can see why it might be confusing you, but this is why when we do the UMS program, we tell you guys, okay, now you're doing this mesocycle, and we all do it together.
Yep.
And over the year, you get great results by following the program that we've set out.
Everything that we've just said there is about leveling up. It's about this is what you do if you want to improve or get better. Maintenance, if you've achieved a level of strength, endurance, flexibility, whatever it is, to maintain it, you need to do far less work. Now, we got some good questions coming through.
Can I just say one last thing before you get into the questions? And there's one more thing that I want to say as well, that to add on to what Yanni just said. If you are a beginner, and I'll put a beginner in, anyone that has been training for less than 12 months consistently training with no breaks for less than 12 months, don't worry about this stuff. Don't let it get to you.
Yeah.
The most important thing above anything else is just frequency and consistency.
Yeah.
It's just turning up to the gym, because the most important thing for you to do if you're in that beginner phase of less than 12 months is to just learn the movements and to just bank volume.
Yeah.
Just bank volume.
Let those deeper tissues, the tendons joining your muscle to bone and the ligaments connecting bone to bone, let those strengthen and harden.
Yep. And that's
Do
just
enough
gonna come from volume.
plyometric impact training, running, jumping, hopping, skipping, to get your bones to calcify and strengthen. And that takes it takes months and months and months and years upon years to get the bones to really change. And
not only that, but to learn the basic terminology of exercise. Like, there is so much terminology in this exercise world. To just learn what horizontal push and pull means, what repetitions and sets mean. Like, some people are struggling with that. What it means to stretch for one set, what A1 and A2 means when you look at a program. Like, those are the things that you just want to wrap your head around first.
Yeah.
This is higher level stuff that we're talking about here. But it was asked by one of our members in the UMS online coaching group, so we're going to answer it.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, how do you get around that psychology that's human nature to want to get to from A to B as quickly as humanly possible? You want to find the thing, the hack, the you know, that's going to get you there, that's going to unlock everything, that's going to make everything work for you, that's going to get your result quick. And it's in everything, you know, it's in everything. It's bizarre. You know, I mean, no matter what, I do a lot of research on finance and investing, and if you looked at the statistics of how many more people buy lottery tickets than buy stocks in companies, you know, they are gambling their money to try and get an instant win, as opposed to investing in something that they believe in and want to support, that's going to give them a guaranteed return over a few decades. It's phenomenal. People just want quick results in everything in life, and exercise is no different. Nutrition and body composition is no different. But yeah, what Rad just said then is just so important to understand. You just got to turn up and do the work.
And it's funny, because I think one thing that anybody can relate to, because in exercise everybody is looking for that hack, everybody wants that quick solution, and in finance, like you said, but there's one thing that seems to be accepted that takes time, and that's education. Like, people understand that if you want to get a degree, you go to university, and there's no way to fast track that. You either decide that you're going to do it or you don't. But imagine if you went to university and you were told that you were doing a 4-year degree, and you said, but how can I get that in 3 months?
Yeah.
How can I fast track it? Imagine what the dean of the university would say to you. They'd just laugh at you and say, well, there's no way to fast track it. You've got to turn up and study and learn and absorb the information, and then you'll pass your exam and you get your degree.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with exercise. You can't fast track it.
No.
You've just got to do the work, and you've just got to accept that you're on a journey, and you'll get great results.
Yeah. Okay, I want to get through that. We've had a lot of questions and some really good ones come through. One that I want to answer straight away from Vinnie Brown here. Does age play into these formulas at all? There's only 2 things that age changes, Vinnie. Age changes how much you need to warm up. As you get older, the body needs a little bit more time and a little bit more method. It needs a bit more of a clinical approach to warm up. You need to get the blood flow done, you need your body positioning done, and you need your mobility done. If you're following our program, the UMS warm-up is like designed for that, you know. And then also in how your body synthesizes proteins? Diet. Diet plays a huge role as we get older. You have to be making sure that you're consuming enough dietary protein, and the amounts, the dosages increase with age because your body's no longer digesting as efficiently as it used to. So to get the same result from the stimulus that you put yourself into in the gym, in your training, to get the same muscle protein synthesis and to build the same amount of muscle tissue, you need, after the age of 50, double the protein, basically.
Yeah, and there's one more thing as well. Yanni's really good at delivering you what the research says about a certain thing. But there's one more thing that maybe there's not as much research on, but that is that the older you are, the more ingrained your issues are in your body. So somebody that's 50 that's been walking around with rounded shoulders versus somebody that's 25, the person that's 50, that there's going to be more work that's required to open that up and to do to deal with that. So you need to take that sort of stuff into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are we gonna answer next?
Let's dive into. Okay, Roger Talevsky, how are you, my friend? Can you measure where you are at with benchmarks? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what testing week's for. And Lars asked that question. Lars asked, one of his last things is, testing week is almost as deload week, I suppose. And what we should say is, no, deload week is what we've been talking about this week, where you deload the volume, but you still aim for increases in intensity. So you still aim to lift more weight on the bench press. If you lifted 80 kilos last week, you can still aim to lift 82 kilos this week, but you only do 40% of the volume. Now, the way that we do testing week, it's a unique thing because we're trying to lift maximal weight with good technique for 6 reps. So we are trying to increase the intensity, but the volume is reduced by the nature of that you're only really doing one set to test. So we mix it together. So, and to tie that in, Roger, to your question, can you measure where you are? Absolutely. It's with testing week. And that's why we've got...
I think what Roger's talking about there is to test, and you can confirm this, Rog, to test the type of muscle fiber that you're more proficient with, or that you're more dominant with, to see where you are along in your training age. Don't know if that's what you're referring to, and in which case, well, I don't know if you remember back when we used to train together a long time ago when I was training people at Fitness First here in North Sydney. I used to do a muscle fiber test when I assessed people initially. It was something that Charles Poliquin taught us to do, and I don't even remember the method behind it because it kind of got abolished, or we got rid of it after a while because people just, there was a lot of people saying it's not relevant and you don't really need to do it. But essentially, it was to figure out what type of muscle fiber makeup people were, more dominantly fast twitch, slow twitch, or a mixed type. And yeah, Roger's saying yes, correct. And we had a protocol for that where we'd test a couple of different movements, bench press, a few other things. And the problem was that it was about taking you to failure. And a lot of people just didn't think that was a good idea at that early stage, especially because I wasn't dealing with elite level athletes like Charles probably does most of the time, or did. He passed on a couple of years ago now. Yeah, when I assess new people in Fitness First, I was assessing weekend warriors like yourself who might play a bit of football on the weekend, or are just there to get stronger and fitter and more flexible. And it's just, you just don't want to take someone to failure, to like clinical neuromuscular failure under those conditions straight away without making sure that it's safe and they're ready for it, you know?
Yep, for sure. So Aidan Potts has got a good question here. He's saying, wow, the table looks sweet, boys. Thank you. Was wondering, what is more difficult, pike push-ups on the ground or parallettes? My parallettes are roughly 16 inches off the ground. So that depends, Aidan. The whole reason why you use parallettes with, so remember that the pike push-up is a progression to a handstand push-up. And the only reason why you're doing a pike push-up and you're not putting your legs up against the wall is because you're not strong enough. And the reason why you use parallettes is that you can go deeper. So because your head hits the ground, so that it means that the shoulders, the arms stop about here, so there's less range of motion with the shoulders. For those of you on the podcast, I'm holding my hands at head height because my head would hit the ground. But with parallettes, you can bring your head right down to the ground so the arms come here, so you get a greater range of motion. You just wouldn't do that with a pike push-up, because what you would rather do is increase the intensity by elevating your feet. So you go to a feet elevated pike push-up, and then you'd go to a wall handstand push-up, and then once you can do a wall handstand push-up, then you can grab the parallettes.
Yeah, then you start to go
and you go deeper
into deficit. Carmine has asked a great question re the deload this week. He's saying, is it okay to do the loaded stretching routine during deload week, and if so, how many days?
Well, you have to deload stretching exactly the same way that you deload strength training. So you can, but you have to deload the volume, and I do that. So when I do my deload week, I still do my exact same stretching program, but the volume gets deloaded to 40%.
Yeah,
and if you're doing 4 sets normally, 40% for me, I do the lower amount. I'll do 1 set only.
Yep. Yeah. So this is the important thing to understand, guys. And we spoke a little bit about this on Friday for Physio Friday with Phil. Stretching is load to the body. It's especially the concept of loaded stretching and end range strength stuff that we do here. So it's very, very important that you understand that load needs to be managed through all stimulus, plyometric or impact. So if you're doing running or stairs or something like that, some form of cardio skipping where you're doing plyo, you need to manage load through stretching, and you need to manage load through intensity training and resistance training. And so during deload week, you've got to reduce the volume of everything.
Yep, absolutely.
But you still keep stretching, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's really important to understand to round all this up. Everything that we've just spoken about, as we said before, it's the higher level stuff. It's the way you manipulate things in order to continue to see progression in strength and flexibility. Once you get to that point where just turning up to the gym isn't enough anymore. And you do all of this in order to create signals in the body that say, on a cellular level, these hormones run through the body and they govern everything, that say, let's get stronger, let's build some muscle. And that process only happens when you're recovering. So that's what the deload week is for. That's what we're in right now. So if you have been training hard, if you felt like last week, oh my God, this is getting tough, you've successfully sent that signal to your body, to your cells, to the hormonal system. And now what it's time to do is back off and let the body do its work. Yeah. And the way you're going to do that is with good sleep, good nutrition, and reducing stress on the body. The most common causes of stress are poor quality of sleep, drugs and alcohol, shit food.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee Clements is saying, didn't notice Rad do less of ostrich walk this morning.
No, I didn't. I didn't do less ostrich walk this morning. All I did was I made it gentle on my body. I also didn't do, because that's quite an easy exercise to deload. The way that I explained this in the workout this morning, Lee. I'm deloading very differently during these at-home workouts than I normally would. And the reason why I'm doing that is because we've got a lot of considerations here, which is that there's people coming into our ecosystem all the time, and we're trying to support everyone. And we've found at Unity Gym, through a lot of trial and error, that people really don't like a forced deload if they're not ready for it. Yeah. So we don't actually force deload on everyone, because we have members that go away for a week or two for work or for holiday, vacation, whatever, and then they come back in deload week. They don't want to deload. Yeah. They've just deloaded for 2 weeks while they were on holiday. So the same thing here. There might be people that are away, or there might be people that have only just started last week. I don't want to force a deload on them. So if I was doing this myself, what I would have done is I would have done the workout exactly like I did last week, but I would have only done 2 rounds of strength and flexibility. And then I would have gone into the cardio circuit and I would have done 1 round as hard as I could. And then I would have done a whole lot of gentle stretching at the end. But I'm trying to make it so that people can still get a good workout, which means that I'm deloading the volume in different ways.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys.
That's a great show. We're getting a lot of people here saying great answers, great analogy. If you guys have got any more questions on this topic, we can talk about this till the cows come home, and we can get deeper on some individual things. We can go deep on anything that anybody wants to hear about. So let's get some questions in this week and let's see what we can answer for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely, guys. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, thank you very much. Everyone who's watching the replay of the video of Unity V on our YouTube channel, make sure you get yourself over to the UMS Movement Mastermind private Facebook group so that you can participate and join in on the production of these live recordings. And yeah, guys, big shout out, Deload Week. We're gearing up for phase 3 of the at-home workouts. We got a lot going on this week. We got a lot. We're preparing really to come out of these lockdowns. It's exciting. It's still, for those of you listening to the replays of these podcasts and recordings in the future, how crazy was coronavirus? How crazy was coronavirus? We've been locked down and the gym's been closed. Anyway, it's given us lots of time to make this awesome room. We'll give you a behind the scenes once it's finished. We've still got a few little bits and pieces to go before this room is totally finished. Once it is, we'll certainly do some Facebook and Instagram stories and YouTube stories and show you what it looks like here. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you. Oh, we got flash sales going on right now. Should we remind them?
Well, we've actually got a very surprise flash sale. Is anyone here from America? Is it Mother's Day today in America? Because America, it's Sunday right now.
Someone said
that was in New York, so I'm guessing that's across all of America.
Yeah.
Because Yardi was going, oh, happy Mother's Day, everyone. And I said, I'm not sure if it's Mother's Day everywhere in the world. And someone from France chimed in and said, no, it's in June in France. And then someone from the UK said, no, it's in March over here. So, but
today is Mother's Day, Vinnie Brown's saying.
Yep. So in Australia and America, it's the same day. So we forgot about that. And normally we'll do a sale to celebrate a holiday. But so we did an unplanned Mother's Day sale, which is actually really good for all of you that are listening or watching, where you can get any of our programs. You can choose whatever you want, 50% discount. Just at checkout when you go to the Thinkific store, just enter the code Mother's Day with no space, and you'll get 50% off whatever program it is that you want. So yeah you've got about another. It ends at 11:59 p.m. Monday Pacific time, so that's about another 18 hours from now, I think. Roughly about that.
Awesome. And Nimala's saying it's Mother's Day here in Trinidad too.
Okay,
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, well, it is different everywhere else in the world. For the rest of you, get on board. Come on, join.
That's right. Buy some of our shit.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
See you later, everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. If you liked it, consider subscribing to our channel and make sure you click the notification bell so you know when our weekly videos are uploaded. Now, the best thing for you to do if you want to stay connected with us and get free online coaching is to join our private Facebook group. It's called the UMS Movement Mastermind, and we go live daily where we answer our members' questions. It's very interactive because you can post questions while we're live and we interact with you on the show. You can also upload videos or pictures of yourself with any movements, any stretches, strength training movements, calisthenics, weightlifting, anything that you're struggling with, and we'll critique you, give you feedback, let you know how you can get better. It's a really valuable resource. It allows a lot of communication with us and also our senior tribe members. You'll get answers very, very quickly, and it's absolutely free. So jump on Facebook, search for UMS Movement Mastermind and join now. Until next time, have a great day.